There is something silent that has been with you since the beginning. An echo that doesn't come from outside, but from within. An ancient script, written before you even knew what it meant to choose. At 7 years old, your brain didn't think, it absorbed. Like a sponge of light and fear, everything you saw, heard, and felt became law. Science calls this state theta waves, an open portal where everything enters, unfiltered, unquestioned. Spirituality calls it the formative field. Catherine Ponder would say that this is where the seeds of prosperity or limitation are planted, not because you chose them, but because they were placed in you before you even knew what a garden was. Bob Proctor used a simple yet powerful analogy. The subconscious mind is like fertile soil. Whatever was planted in childhood keeps growing, even if you've forgotten what you sowed. Think about that. Every fear, every word, every look of disapproval or gesture of love you received was absorbed by this vibrational soil and began to sprout quietly. It grew with you. It became your reactions, your impulses, your patterns. And today, you may wonder why you repeat the same story, why the same pain keeps returning, why the same emptiness echoes even when life seems fine. The answer isn't in the present. It vibrates in a past that is still alive inside you. Until the age of 7, you lived in a hypnotic state. There was no resistance between what you saw and what you believed. If someone said, "Money is hard," your field recorded that as a vibrational law. If you were made to feel you had to earn love, your body recorded that condition as a rule for survival. And now, decades later, your emotional system still follows those invisible commands. It's as if a background program runs your life even when you think you're in control. And that is the program we are about to decode. But before trying to change anything, there's something essential. To understand that none of this was your fault. You didn't choose your beliefs. They were imprinted on a developing brain, shaped by voices that were also wounded. As Catherine Ponder said, limitation and prosperity are inherited mental patterns, not chosen ones. The good news is that what was learned in trance can also be relearned in awareness. The mind that was once an open field still is. You can reopen the garden. You can pull out the old weeds and plant new vibrational seeds, not through effort, but through presence. What hurts isn't what happened. What hurts is the echo. It's living on autopilot, feeling life repeat in emotional loops and familiar situations, not because destiny is chasing you, but because the old vibration is still active. The body learned to vibrate in the frequency of fear, lack, and self-defense. And that's why, even with the will to change, you feel something invisible pulling you back. As if a quiet voice whispered, "It's not safe to prosper. It's not safe to be seen." This video is a call to return to the origin, not to relive the past, but to reinterpret it. To look into the eyes of the 7-year-old still living in your body and say, "You can rest now, I'm here." When the adult and the child unite, the field changes. Because the vibration of healing doesn't come from denying pain, but from loving presence before it. Throughout this journey, we will decode the hidden program that governs your thoughts, emotions, and choices. We will understand what the brain learned before it could reason, and how to rewrite that vibrational matrix without forcing anything, without the weight of superficial positivity, without the pressure to be enlightened. The process is simple, yet profound. To reconnect with your original vibration, the one before fear, before scarcity. And as you listen, allow yourself to feel. Because the mind understands words, but the subconscious understands vibration. At some point, your body may react. A silent tear, a shiver, a memory rising to the surface. Don't run from it. That is your field opening. It is your story returning to be rewritten. The spiritual and scientific promise is the same. When you change the frequency, reality must respond. This is the beginning of a return a return to the truth that has always existed beneath every layer. You are not the program. You are the consciousness that can reprogram. And that consciousness begins now, in the silence between breaths, in the instant you realize the past isn't over. It's simply waiting to be heard, so it can finally turn into light. There was a time when everything you saw was true. No word needed explanation, no gesture needed logic. The child's mind is pure openness. It is vibrational receptivity, not reasoning. Between birth and 7 years old, the brain operates mostly in theta waves, a natural, deep hypnotic state, the same one adults reach only in deep meditation. In that stage, the child doesn't analyze, compare, or question. It simply absorbs. Every phrase, every emotion, every look becomes a silent law, engraved in the invisible fabric of the subconscious. Neuroscience calls this period the programming phase. But spiritually, it is much more than that. It's the moment when the vibrational field is still pure, still without boundaries. Everything said, everything felt around the child becomes part of their energetic identity. That's why the phrases we hear in childhood, money is hard, you're lazy, boys don't cry, good girls stay quiet, are not just words. They are vibrational codes. They are waves that settle into the body and shape how we feel life. Decades later, those voices still echo as emotions, decisions, and invisible limits. The child's brain does not distinguish reality from suggestion. When an authority figure says something, the child's field takes it as absolute truth. The mind doesn't yet have the adult's critical filter, the one that asks, "Is that really true?" So the subconscious records every experience with emotional fidelity. If there was fear, it records fear. If there was love, it records love. And the body, being the mirror of the mind, learns to react accordingly. The posture changes, the gaze changes, the breathing changes. What we call personality is often just vibrational memory. This total absorption state is what allows a child to learn a language in a few months, to recognize patterns, to sense intentions, to read emotions. But it's also what makes them vulnerable to the limiting beliefs and unresolved pains of the adults around them. When a father says, "We don't have money," the child doesn't understand context. It understands vibration. Their field records the emotion of lack, not just the sentence. When a mother cries in silence, trying to be strong, the child's body learns that love and pain must coexist. The child's mind is like a water mirror. Everything that comes near reflects. Everything that touches imprints. There is no resistance. It is a form of pure faith, an innocent faith that believes what it feels more than what it sees. And that faith, when shaped by fear, becomes self-protection. When shaped by love, becomes expansion. Thus, the vibrational destiny of an adult is, to a great extent, the reflection of the emotional climate in which they lived their first 7 years. There is tenderness in this understanding. It's not about blaming the past, but about understanding it. The child's mind is the soil of the soul. It doesn't question the gardener. It simply blooms according to the emotional weather. And now, as an adult, you carry within you both the flowers and the weeds of that first garden. Some perfume your life. Others choke what could have grown. But all come from the same source, the theta state, where learning happens through feeling. When we understand that the child's brain is a portal of vibrational absorption, we also understand that the power to change lies in vibration, not words. The subconscious does not respond to logic. It responds to energetic coherence. That's why reprogramming yourself is, above all, relearning how to feel. It is returning to the point of origin, to that quiet place where everything began to be written, and where everything can be rewritten. Deep within you still exists that open, receptive field that once believed everything it heard. It still listens. It still records. And it is in that same state of surrender, of presence, that transformation becomes possible. Children don't learn through words. They learn through fields. They absorb frequencies, not sentences. Long before they understand the literal meaning of speech, they already decode tone, vibration, and the silence between phrases. That's why a child can grow up believing something completely opposite to what was said, because their body didn't respond to the words, but to the emotion hidden behind them. When a father says, "It's fine," but his body vibrates tension, the child learns fear, not calm. When a mother smiles, but her eyes hold sadness, the child's field feels absence, not love. Childhood learning is energetic. It happens through vibrational imitation, not logical reasoning. Every cell, every heartbeat of the child synchronizes with the emotional state of the adults around them. If the environment vibrates guilt, they absorb guilt. If it vibrates lack, they absorb lack. If it vibrates love, they flourish. That's why, as adults, we often repeat emotional patterns we consciously reject. An adult may affirm, "I believe in abundance," yet their field still carries the ancestral fear of loss. They may say, "I trust in love," but their body still contracts when they feel closeness. What shapes vibrational identity isn't what was said, but what was felt. Catherine Ponder wrote, "Thought is the seed, but emotion is the sap that makes it grow." It's emotion that gives power to belief, that decides whether an idea will bloom or die. What we call self-sabotage is simply the body obeying an old vibration. And paradoxically, the subconscious does this out of love. Love for survival, love for belonging. It repeats pain because it believes that by repeating, you remain safe. In childhood, the emotional field is like an open antenna. It receives everything. The child doesn't filter, doesn't understand irony, doesn't distinguish intention from content. When a father yells, even if not at them, the nervous system records threat. When a mother stays silent to avoid conflict, the child learns that silence equals safety. Everything lived in those early years translates into energetic code, and that code continues to operate automatically, guiding choices, reactions, and relationships. In adult life, these same vibrations often replay in new contexts. An authoritarian boss may trigger the same reaction a father once did. A distant partner may awaken the same childhood fear of rejection. The rational mind tries to explain, but it's the body that remembers. And the body doesn't forget what was felt. It simply repeats, trying to balance the field. True reprogramming begins when we realize we're repeating inherited feelings, not thoughts. Beliefs aren't sentences written in the mind. They're emotions rooted in the body. And changing vibration doesn't mean denying the past. It means honoring what was learned while understanding that it's no longer needed. We are the emotional echo of those who taught us to love, to fear, to survive. But we are also the consciousness that can transform that echo into a new melody. Energetic imitation is inevitable in childhood, but vibrational creation is possible in maturity. And within that difference lies the beginning of freedom. Between birth and 7 years old, something silent happens. The child, without realizing it, begins to form vibrational agreements to survive. Subtle pacts signed with the world, with the parents, with love itself. Not written, not spoken, but deeply felt. To be loved, I must disappear. To be safe, I must not shine. To avoid being abandoned, I must please. These contracts are not rational. They are psychic, emotional, vibrational. They are born from the pure instinct to maintain love and belonging. The child does not seek truth. She seeks connection. And if she must shrink to stay loved, she will. If she must hide her light to avoid rejection, she will learn to hide. That is how invisible contracts are born. They are vibrational responses to the pain of disconnection. And what begins as protection eventually becomes a prison. The body learns that love comes with fear, that success brings guilt, that authenticity costs loneliness. These agreements become the foundation of personality. The adult mind forgets their content, but the energetic field never forgets the code. Decades later, you may strive, move cities, change jobs, enter new relationships, yet still feel held back by something unseen. That is the contract vibrating. Silent agreements that keep running in the background, attracting people, situations, and emotions that confirm the old story. The subconscious doesn't seek novelty, it seeks coherence. And if vibrational coherence equals pain, it will choose pain, because pain feels familiar. Spiritually, these contracts are seen as soul pacts, not as punishments, but as temporary commitments to learn about love, boundaries, and courage. At some level, the soul agreed to experience certain beliefs, so they could later be transformed into wisdom. But when the lesson ends and the contract remains active, the field begins to vibrate in conflict. The desire to grow collides with the fear of losing love. The will to prosper battles the unconscious loyalty to inherited scarcity. The energy of these contracts shows up in many forms. Sometimes it's the inner voice that says, "You can't," even when everything seems possible. Other times it's the sabotage pattern that appears whenever success is near. These are ancient echoes, repeating promises once made unknowingly. I won't surpass those who taught me. I won't be happier than they were. I won't be different. But the soul wants the opposite. It seeks expansion, not repetition. The truth is, these contracts were born in innocence. And what is born from innocence doesn't need to be broken by force. It needs to be understood with love. When we look at these internal pacts with compassion, they begin to dissolve. Because the subconscious only yields to safety. It releases the old only when it feels the new is no longer a threat. Every limiting belief is a vibrational signature, a silent promise made to fear. And when you recognize that promise, the field reorganizes itself. What once magnetized pain becomes a field of freedom. There is no punishment within these contracts. Only emotional loyalty to a past that has already fulfilled its purpose. You don't need to deny these agreements, just bring them to light. What is seen transforms. What is heard is freed. And when consciousness recognizes the pact, love does the rest. Love is the only element capable of rewriting vibrational contracts. It doesn't erase the past, it reinterprets it, and in that moment, something shifts in the field. The old code dissolves, and a new frequency arises, one that no longer comes from the need to be loved, but from the certainty of already being love. The age of instant spirituality has promised shortcuts for changing the mind. Ready-made affirmations, catchy phrases, automatic repetition. I am prosperous. I am enough. I am happy. But the subconscious doesn't speak the language of words. It speaks the language of emotion and imagery. That's why, for so many, reprogramming seems to fail. Because the body doesn't believe what the mind repeats. There's a distance between what is said and what is vibrated. Between the mental desire and the emotional truth. Most people try to heal the subconscious through logic, but the subconscious is poetic. It responds to coherence, not speech. If the body still vibrates fear, no phrase will convince it that safety exists. If the heart still holds guilt, no affirmation of worthiness will bring peace. Because the subconscious is not rational, it is sensory. It must feel to believe. The hidden error of modern reprogramming lies in trying to change emotion with thought, when the true path is the opposite, transforming thought through emotion. Neuroscience shows that the brain does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined, as long as the emotional experience is coherent. This means that imagining a new state of being, with authentic emotion and bodily presence, creates the same neural networks as an actual event. But for that to happen, more than words are needed. Vibration is needed. Catherine Ponder said, Prosperity begins when you become mentally receptive. Joe Dispenza would add, "The body must feel the future before it happens." Repeating affirmations without emotional involvement is like speaking to a garden without water. Words are the seeds, but feeling is the nourishment that makes them grow. The body must be convinced through experience, not through reasoning. The vibrational field transforms only when the new state is felt as truth, not as a distant dream, but as a living presence. Imagine someone who repeats daily, "I am worthy of love," yet feels shame, fear, or loneliness. The body vibrates lack, and the field responds to lack. Because the universe doesn't listen to words, it listens to frequency. The language of the field is sustained emotion. That's why, when there's a contradiction between what is said and what is felt, the field aligns with the feeling, not the statement. The mind may lie, the body never does. To reprogram oneself, then, is not to force the new, but to dissolve the old. It is allowing old emotion to be seen, felt, and transmuted. True change happens when the body believes, when the new vibration stops being an idea and becomes a sensation. It is not about repeating a phrase 1,000 times, but inhabiting it with presence. It is not what you say. It is what your field believes. Practical spirituality is not about denying fear, but teaching it to feel safe within the new. Fear doesn't need to be banished. It needs to be embraced until it realizes it is no longer necessary. And in that moment, the body relaxes, the field expands, and the new program installs itself. The hidden error of modern reprogramming is trying to change vibration through mental force, when the mind is only the translator of what the body already feels. True reprogramming is an art of coherence. It is aligning feeling, thought, and vibration. When coherence exists, the field reorganizes naturally, effortlessly. Everything that once seemed hard begins to flow, because resistance ceases. There is no struggle, only adjustment. No imposition, only resonance. The body learns to believe what the heart has chosen, and the field responds, as it always has, reflecting the vibrational truth of being. There's a subtle misunderstanding many carry, believing that the adult self is the one creating life, that it's the rational, conscious, disciplined mind that manifests results. But the truth is, the field that shapes reality is driven by emotion, and the one who governs emotion is the inner child. She is the sensory center of the soul, the keeper of your earliest beliefs, the core that still vibrates in the tones of love and fear learned long ago. The adult only executes. The field decides, and the field vibrates to the frequency of the child you once were. This child never disappears. She merely changes disguise. Sometimes she appears as anxiety when she fears being forgotten. Other times, as self-sabotage when she fears rejection, or as perfectionism, trying to earn the love that once felt absent. Every blockage, every repeated pain, is simply the inner child trying to be heard. She doesn't want to punish. She wants to be seen. She doesn't want to interfere. She wants to belong. Bruce Lipton explains that the subconscious is a recorder that keeps playing old programs until they are replaced. Joe Dispenza adds that the body is the subconscious in motion, repeating the past until it is taught to feel something new. This means that until the inner child is integrated, the adult will continue manifesting the same frequency, no matter the amount of spiritual knowledge or conscious intention. This child still creates your reality because she vibrates stronger than thought. She vibrates in survival. When the body feels danger, the field obeys fear. When it feels safe, the field obeys expansion. The inner child is the vibrational heart of your being. She doesn't speak in words. She speaks in sensations. What you feel is what she believes. Imagine for a moment this child within you, not as a memory, but as a living presence. She watches your decisions, your fears, your desires. When you force yourself to be strong, she feels abandoned. When you compare yourself, she feels rejected. When you soften, she relaxes. The energy she emits is the signal the universe reads. The world doesn't respond to your age. It responds to your vibration. That's why so many attempts at change fail. The adult desires the new, but the child still fears it. The body wants prosperity, but the deeper vibration associates prosperity with loss. The mind wants love, but the field still links love with pain. The result is vibrational dissonance, two programs running at once. And when there's a conflict between mind and field, the field always wins. True healing begins when the adult stops trying to control the child and starts listening. When they realize that behind every resistance lies a request for protection. When they understand that every fear is, at its core, a plea for love. This listening doesn't happen through words, but through presence. Presence heals what time could not. Because the inner child doesn't need advice. She needs tenderness. Integrating this child means allowing her to trust again. When the body feels emotional safety, the field begins to vibrate at a new frequency. Creation becomes natural, gentle, coherent. The adult and the child begin to work together, and the universe responds to that unity. There is no more sabotage, only alignment. No more struggle, only flow. The inner child keeps creating your reality because she is the living emotion within you. And the universe responds to emotion. The good news is that when love finally reaches her, the entire field reorganizes. The vibration shifts, and with it, life changes. The body does not forget. It is the living memory of everything you've ever felt, believed, and feared. Every gesture, every tension, every interrupted breath is an old sentence the subconscious still repeats. What the mind represses, the body expresses. What the heart silences, the body translates into sensation. When it's said that the body stores emotions, it isn't a metaphor, it's literal. The beliefs imprinted in childhood became physiological language, shaping muscles, nerves, and even the way the body inhabits space. There are shoulders that learn to carry the weight of early responsibility, chests that tightened upon learning that love hurts, throats that closed after hearing it was dangerous to speak. The body is the diary of the soul, written in tension, fatigue, and posture. At 7 years old, the nervous system records patterns of survival that later become automatic reactions. And the most curious thing is that while the mind tries to change thoughts, the body keeps reacting to the past, as if the danger were still present. Neuroscience confirms what spiritual wisdom has long known. The body is the subconscious in motion. It moves, breathes, and reacts according to the energetic field that animates it. Every belief creates a neural circuit, and simultaneously, a muscular pattern. Prolonged fear contracts the diaphragm, limits breathing, and restricts the flow of vital energy. Chronic guilt bends the spine, as if the body were apologizing to the world. Repressed anger turns into rigidity, control, and constant struggle against what cannot be controlled. The 7-year-old who once held back tears still lives in your nervous system. That child learned that feeling was dangerous, and the body obeyed. Decades later, the reflex remains. That's why so many people feel tired for no reason, anxious without cause, trapped in a state of alert that never switches off. The body is still trying to protect them from a past that has already ended. But the body is also the portal of liberation. It is the only place where the past can be transformed into the present. The mind can understand, but the body must believe it is safe now. When the body breathes deeply, the subconscious receives the message that the danger is gone. When there is touch, movement, and presence, the cells understand that life goes on. And so, the old programming begins to dissolve, not through mental effort, but through sensory vibration. Catherine Ponder said that prosperity begins when we become receptive. the body is the first receptor. Through it, abundance can be felt before it is seen. A contracted body cannot manifest. It only survives. A relaxed body vibrates permission. That is why emotional healing inevitably passes through physical healing. The body must learn the new rhythm, the new flow, the new breath. The body is both the mirror of the mind and the altar of the soul. It bears witness to every belief and responds faithfully to each one. It doesn't judge. It simply obeys. And when it is finally seen with presence and gratitude, it begins to tell a different story. The muscles soften, the heart slows, energy flows again. The past recedes, and the present settles as a new vibration. To reprogram oneself is, in essence, to re-educate the body to feel free again. Liberation is not a concept. It is a physiological experience. The body, once a prison, becomes the path. For it is not the enemy of your beliefs. It is the guardian. And when the guardian is honored, the mind opens, and the soul breathes in peace once more. Reality never lies. It only reflects. Everything you live, every person you meet, every situation that repeats itself, is a vibrational mirror of the code still operating in your field. The universe doesn't judge. It reveals. It reveals through circumstances, faces, and patterns. Not to punish, but to remind. The world is not against you. It is trying to show you where your field still vibrates in the past. Here, quantum physics and spirituality converge. Both affirm that the observer influences the observed. What you vibrate determines what you perceive. Life does not respond to your words, but to your sustained frequency. If an old belief still resonates, I am not enough, love hurts, life is hard, the field must reflect it to maintain vibrational coherence. And that reflection comes in the form of experience, as a silent opportunity for awareness. When someone rejects you, the mirror is showing where you still reject yourself. When something is taken from you, it reveals where you still believe you can lose. When someone ignores you, it reflects where you have abandoned yourself. The universe does not punish. It repeats until you recognize. Every recurring pattern is a vibrational message. Look at this. Heal this. Release this. Catherine Ponder said that prosperity is an inner state that the world merely imitates. This means that to change the reflection, one must change the vibration. Reality is like a pool of water. You cannot smooth the reflection with your hands. You must touch the source. And the source is within. That is the power and paradox of the mirror. It shows what already exists in you, but also offers the chance to transmute it. Every time something hurts you, there is a frequency and resonance. The mirror only appears when something must be seen. Thus, the external world is a healing chamber. Each interaction is an invitation. Each conflict, a chance to return to center. When acceptance arrives, the reflection naturally changes, because the vibration does. Bruce Lipton teaches that the human energy field is both transmitter and receiver. It sends out frequency and receives compatible patterns in return. It's not punishment, it's physics. The field simply seeks balance. When the transmitter changes, the return changes. That's why, when a person begins to truly heal, people, places, and situations begin to shift. The field reorganizes reality according to the new code. The challenge arises when the ego tries to fix the mirror instead of understanding the reflection. We try to change people, correct the world, forgetting that everything begins with vibration. The mirror has no will of its own. It simply returns what it sees. The real power, then, lies in recognizing. The world is showing me what I still vibrate, not who I am. And when that recognition happens without guilt, something sacred begins. The energy that once was resistance becomes awareness. The reflection ceases to be threat and becomes guidance. Reality turns into a silent teacher, pointing, through each repetition, to the same origin, the vibrational belief from childhood. Life reflects what the body believes, not what the mind desires. And within that distinction lies the soul's most subtle work, aligning vibration and intention until the reflection becomes coherent. The mirror then stops showing wounds and starts showing light. For the world will always, with precision, reflect the inner state of its observer. There is an invisible point where desire and identity collide. It's there that manifestation fails, not because of lack of faith, but because of emotional loyalty to the old self. The adult desires something new, abundance, freedom, love, yet the body still vibrates with beliefs learned when all of that once felt unsafe. The mind dreams of expansion, while the subconscious still equates expansion with loss. The result is vibrational dissonance, two opposite fields coexisting within the same being. The law of attraction, often popularized, is usually misunderstood as a game of positive thinking. But the universe doesn't respond to what you think. It responds to what you are. And what you are, vibrationally, is the sum of the oldest emotions your body still carries. The energy you emit when you desire something new is often the same energy of the lack you are trying to escape. That's why manifestation doesn't occur. The field doesn't understand what you want. It understands only what you feel. Joe Dispenza explains that the brain and body exist in constant chemical synchrony. If, for years, you've fed emotions of scarcity, the body has become biologically addicted to them. Even when the mind projects a new future, the body pulls it back to the past. It wants the familiar emotion. It wants the old pattern. Resistance, then, is simply biological loyalty to the old self. Desiring freedom while the subconscious fears being punished for shining is a vibrational paradox. Wanting love while the body still contracts at intimacy is a mixed signal to the field. The frequency of desire must match the vibrational identity. Otherwise, the universe cannot respond, because there is no energetic coherence. It's not a lack of worth. It's a lack of alignment. Manifestation doesn't fail from lack of power, but from excess of internal noise. It's the childlike beliefs whispering in energetic language. If I'm too happy, I'll be rejected. If I'm prosperous, I'll lose love. If I'm free, I'll be alone. These invisible phrases create self-limiting fields. The adult's desire is blocked by the child's silent promise, the promise to stay the same in order to keep belonging. The solution isn't to want harder, but to reconcile these two voices. Desire must not be forced. It must be heard. Identity must not be rejected. It must be re-educated. When the inner child feels safe within the new field, the body relaxes, the heart expands, and desire ceases to be effort. It becomes natural, coherent. The field understands that the new doesn't threaten love, and flow returns. Neville Goddard said that faith is not believing in something external, but dwelling in the desired state as if it were real. To dwell is to feel, and to feel is to vibrate. True manifestation happens when the new state becomes familiar to the body, when desire stops being a future goal and becomes a present identity. It's in that moment that frequency aligns, and the universe responds precisely. The apparent failure of manifestation is simply a sign that parts of you still vibrate in another direction. There is no error, only incoherence. The field doesn't punish, it mirrors. And when every part of your being, mind, body, and emotion, agrees on the same future, reality has no choice but to align. Manifestation doesn't happen because you think the new. It happens because you become it. The universe doesn't react to ideas. It reacts to vibration. And when desire and identity unite, the field doesn't just respond, it blooms. Every deep transformation begins with a simple gesture: recognition. There is no way to heal what remains unseen. That is why the first step of deprogramming is bringing the inherited patterns into awareness. The phrases, the emotions, the silences, the beliefs that once seemed unchangeable truths. Every repetitive thought, every automatic emotion, is an echo from childhood asking to be heard. When the echo is recognized, something within shifts. What was unconscious becomes illuminated. Energy once trapped begins to flow. Recognition is the opening of the door to vibrational change. The second movement is inner reenactment. Neuroscience shows that the brain is plastic. It rewires memories when new emotions are linked to old ones. Thus, when you relive a scene from the past and surround it with a different emotion, you create new neural connections, new frequencies. Catherine Ponder said that the mind is the brush of the soul. It repaints life through imagination. When the body revisits what once hurt, but within a field of love, trauma becomes wisdom. The past ceases to be a prison and becomes propulsion. This process is not a rational act. It is a sensory experience. It is feeling what once was pain under a new light. The 7-year-old who once believed they were small or unworthy begins to feel the presence of the adult who now holds them. There are no words enough to describe this reunion. It's as if time dissolves. The body relaxes, the mind quiets, the heart understands. The energy that once vibrated in fear begins to vibrate in safety. And safety is the ground where transformation blooms. The third movement is vibrational replacement. Once the old code is seen and dissolved, the field needs a new reference. Mind and body learn through sensory repetition. That's why creating a coherent emotional image is far more powerful than any affirmation. It is imagining yourself living in a state of love, abundance, and worthiness, and allowing the body to feel it as truth. When the emotion is real, the brain doesn't distinguish imagination from experience. The new state becomes the new normal. This vibrational replacement requires no effort. It is about sustaining, remaining in the new field until it becomes familiar. The body gradually replaces the chemistry of fear with the chemistry of trust, the frequency of lack with the frequency of gratitude. And with that, reality begins to align naturally, without force. Joe Dispenza describes this moment as the fusion of intention and emotion, the instant when the body finally believes in the future before it happens. The deprogramming process is, in essence, a return to coherence. It is the reunion of the mind that understands, the body that feels, and the field that manifests. It is not about erasing the past, but teaching the body to vibrate in new possibilities. What was once fear becomes wisdom. What was once pain becomes a doorway. What once was blockage becomes creative force. Reprogramming is not a battle against the old, but an act of love toward the new. It is the meeting between child and adult, between past and present, between human and divine. When these parts look at each other without fear, vibration aligns. And when there is alignment, the universe responds like a clear mirror, reflecting without distortion the light of who you truly are. Prosperity is not an achievement. It is a frequency. It is not about accumulation, but permission. Catherine Ponder said, "Prosperity begins when you become mentally receptive." And this simple phrase reveals the secret many spend a lifetime seeking. To prosper is to be in coherence between mind, body, and field. It is when the flow of giving and receiving becomes natural again, without fear, without resistance, without guilt. The mind doesn't create prosperity. It merely tunes consciousness to the frequency where abundance already exists. In childhood, many associated prosperity with effort, sacrifice, and struggle. The field was conditioned to believe that one must earn everything, that life rewards only those who suffer enough. These beliefs created invisible barriers to flow. The body learned to tense in pleasure, to contract in abundance. And so, even when the universe offers more, the field rejects it, not from ingratitude, but from programming. The subconscious still believes that receiving is dangerous. The language of prosperity is not verbal, it is vibrational. The field reads states, not speeches. A peaceful heart attracts more than 1,000 affirmations of wealth. Gratitude, for instance, is one of the highest and most coherent vibrations, not because it thanks what comes from outside, but because it acknowledges the inner flow of life. Where there is gratitude, there is openness. And where there is openness, the field responds with generosity. Bruce Lipton teaches that every cell of the body is an energetic antenna, both receiving and transmitting frequencies according to emotional state. This means that prosperity is, quite literally, the body learning to feel safe within abundance. When the body relaxes, the mind expands, and the field restores harmonic circulation. Prosperity is not effort. It is permission. The human mind was trained to focus on lack. That's why so many think of abundance yet vibrate scarcity. The more they seek, the more the field confirms the distance between wanting and having. True prosperity begins when focus shifts from need to presence, when being ceases to ask and begins to allow. At that point, the field stops responding to deficiency and starts reflecting wholeness. Catherine Ponder also said, "Prosperity is the natural state of the soul." Indeed, before beliefs and inherited fears, the natural state of being is abundance. The body vibrates in flow, the mind in expansion, the heart in surrender. To reprogram oneself is to return to that state. It is to clear the noise of scarcity, to hear again the pure sound of life flowing. Joe Dispenza, through science, describes the same truth. To change the emotional state is to change the electromagnetic field of the body. And when the field changes, reality must respond. The universe is mathematically coherent. It only reflects. When vibration is of lack, it mirrors absence. When vibration is of abundance, it mirrors fulfillment. The secret, then, is not to ask, but to sustain the vibration of certainty, gratitude, and ease. Prosperity is not a reward from the universe. It is a consequence of alignment. When inner coherence returns, natural flow is restored. The body relaxes, the heart trusts, and energy moves effortlessly. To prosper is to live in a vibrational state of permission, to allow life to do what it has always wanted, expand. Abundance does not come from outside. It awakens when the inner field flows without fear. And in that state, nothing must be forced. What is yours arrives. What is not dissolves. For the language of prosperity is the language of harmony, the silent frequency that arises when love replaces fear, when gratitude replaces control. The vibration that once was effort becomes music, and life itself begins to dance to the rhythm of your soul. Catherine Ponder once said, "You can begin to prosper right where you are, with what you have, and as you are." This simple, luminous phrase captures the essence of the journey of consciousness. Nothing outside needs to change for everything within to begin transforming. Reprogramming the mind and field is not about erasing the past, but about loving it. What you lived does not need to be deleted, only understood, because everything that once hurt you also taught you to seek the light that now guides you. Joe Dispenza affirms through science what the mystics have long known. Changing your emotional state changes the electromagnetic field around your body, altering the probability of events. This means that every consciously felt emotion, every act of presence, every moment of gratitude, reconfigures the invisible architecture that creates your reality. You are not bound to the old program. The field is dynamic, and vibration renews each moment the heart chooses to feel differently. To reprogram oneself, then, is not to erase the story, but to re-educate the body and mind to feel the future before it happens. The future is not distant. It is a frequency already existing, waiting for you to align with it. When the emotion of the new is felt as truth, matter begins to respond. That is how physics meets faith. When the inner field changes, the outer world must follow. The past stops being an enemy when you realize it is not a sentence, but a teacher. Every repetition, every pain, every cycle was only your field's attempt to bring you back to awareness. Nothing was in vain. Pain merely pointed to where energy had stopped flowing. Healing begins the moment you look with compassion at the story that shaped you, because in embracing what once hurt, you return freedom to the body and peace to the soul. The return to vibrational coherence is the true miracle of consciousness. It is when the adult and the child stop struggling and begin to vibrate together. The part that knows and the part that feels unite. The result is peace. A peace that comes not from outside, but from the inner reunion. At that moment, the field reorganizes, the heart expands, and reality begins to mirror that new harmony. Conscious creation does not arise from control, but from the union of two forces, reason and emotion, mind and heart. Catherine Ponder taught that prosperity is the reflection of a mind open to infinity. And when Joe Dispenza shows that the coherent heart emits the strongest electromagnetic field in the human body, he describes the same phenomenon, the instant when the human remembers the divine within. It is there that creation happens, not as effort, but as consequence. To rewrite reality is, at its essence, a return. A return to the point before beliefs, guilt, and defenses. A return to the pure vibration of the child who still lives within you. The one who once believed in love and felt the world as an extension of their own heart. That is your essence. When the adult reconnects with that child, life begins to flow in harmony again. Energy becomes music, and the world dances to the rhythm of your soul. The past need not be forgotten, only understood. Pain need not be denied, only heard. And the future need not be chased, only felt. When the adult and the child unite, when mind and heart breathe in the same rhythm, the field responds, vibration changes, matter reorganizes, and life becomes the clear mirror of your new consciousness. To rewrite your reality is to remember who you have always been. It is to awaken the wisdom that slept beneath layers of fear. It is to realize that nothing was wrong, only incomplete. What seemed like fate was only vibration awaiting awareness. And now, in recognizing this, you close the cycle. The field calms, the body expands, and the soul, at last, rests in the flow that has always been hers. If this message resonated with you, if it touched something quiet and familiar within, consider subscribing to this channel. Here, every word, every silence, every story exists to help you remember what you already are. Pure consciousness, pure creation, pure love.